Welcome to the IT Career Energizer podcast. For anyone who wants to build and grow a career in IT, develop and improve your strengths and skills, be inspired and motivated by the successes of others, manage your career progression, and achieve your IT career goals. And now, your host, Phil Burgess.
Welcome to episode 301 of the IT Career Energizer podcast. My guest on today's show helps web designers and developers to launch and grow their freelancing careers. He is a developer, consultant, and course creator, as well as host of the Freelancer Podcast, where he shares freelancing and marketing nuggets for web developers. So it's my pleasure to welcome to the podcast, Kyle Prinsloo.
Wow. Well, first of all, Phil, thank you so much for having me. And the other point I want to mention is that intro was probably the most concise and most accurate introduction I've ever had. So really well done.
Right. Well, thank you for that. But I think it's probably a good opportunity then to ask you maybe to expand on that intro and tell us a little bit about your background and what you're working on and how you got into IT.
Certainly. So my background is quite diverse, right? I didn't complete high school for various different reasons. And it's very much on the random different jobs, accounting, jewelry, insurance, IT even, like tech installations and network installations for a small business. And eventually, I wanted to study marketing and business, and that sort of led me to finding a job in marketing. I was a marketing manager at quite a large company for about 3.5 years. And it was after about 2 years at the company that I wanted to earn a side income. And that led me to wanting to freelance. I was learning web development on Udemy. And I thought that if I had to combine the skills of web development with marketing services, it's a great service to offer clients. So that's exactly what I did. After a year of freelancing on the side, I managed to match my full-time income. And eventually, about a year after that, I left my full-time job to freelance full-time. And that was, I think, in about 2017. So I've pretty much been freelancing full-time for about 4 or 5 years now. And it's really been an amazing journey. And that brought me to where we are today. And I pretty much, I still freelance. I still have a lot of clients at the moment. And I teach what I know on my website, study web development. And I really, really love what I do.
Yeah, and then we're going to come back to obviously that and the fact that you now teach other people, what you've done effectively to become an independent freelancer. But yes, good. Okay. Kyle, can you share with us a career tip, one that the audience may not be aware of and perhaps should be?
Okay. I would say probably the best thing in my mind is more like a soft skill in a way, but I think that a lot of people actually don't have this, and that is to be curious and to be inquisitive. So if you have the understanding or the mindset of wanting to always learn, I think that is a great foundation to work from. In other words, if you can seek to understand as well, and then also be understood, I think that sort of mindset and that tip and that approach is really key to really growing in any type of career, whether that's in a full-time job or freelancing, and for that matter, even personal relationships as well.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that as potentially a soft skill. So do you believe that's something that you can develop and hone?
Yes, I would say so. Because if you think about it, right, I've got a lot of friends with different backgrounds. And yes, I do agree we all have different personalities. But if you look at the data and the science behind it, it's quite interesting. If you look at psychiatrists and psychological studies of are people born introverted or are they born extroverted? And it's quite interesting. If you look at it, a lot of people can actually start out introverted, and due to certain circumstances, maybe family situations, or maybe more confidence, they become a bit more extroverted. So what I'm trying to say is, I think that learning to be inquisitive and to learn, it requires some communication skill. And I do think that it can definitely be taught and learned without a doubt.
Yeah, no, I think I tend to agree with you there as well. And I think consistency in doing those things actually does really help in terms of developing that curiosity.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay, Carl, can you share with us your worst career moment and what you learned from that experience?
Okay, so obviously there are a couple, right? But I would say that the one that stands out to me when you ask this question is an example of when I started freelancing. Like, I would say my first year of freelancing, I got a bad client, and this client experience, I would say, has scarred me for life. So what happened was, this client used to constantly call me on weekends, right? And call me and call me at night, and sort of like micromanage me, and that type of experience. And I must say that was really terrible, for me. And I did manage to deal with that and speak to him and try and find a compromise, and we actually came to an agreement. But I must say that that client experience really taught me a lot. So that bad experience actually was a great educational and learning process for me.
Yeah, that's good to hear. So, in terms of the relationships you now have with your clients, presumably you have a different methodology.
Without a doubt, definitely. And I think this also boils down to a little bit in terms of the soft skills of communication, because I find that expectations, assumptions, and expectations. It's amazing how in your mind, as a freelancer, or as a software engineer or whatever in your job, you have certain expectations of what you assume from others. If it does not come to pass the way that you expect it to, you're looking at it only from your perspective, but they're looking at it from another perspective. They also assume certain things from you. And I think that's where it's important now. That taught me a lot going forward in dealing with my current clients and future clients, to say, like, look, this is how I work. You need to trust me in my process. You're the expert in your field. I'm in the expert in my field. Let's work together, and sort of find a middle ground of like what works for both of us, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does absolutely. So, I think you touched on an interesting word or an important point there about trust as well. So, there has to be that trust within the relationship, doesn't there, to enable that
Agreed.
customer client relationship to work. So, yeah, that's a key part. And as you say, that's often down to making sure you have an effective method of communication.
I fully agree with that.
Yeah. Okay, Carl, can you tell us about your career highlight to date?
Wow. So obviously I've also had quite a few, which I'm really grateful for. But if I have to look at it from like a large overview perspective, I would say that it actually started in 2015. And that was really when I first got my first client. And my first client started on a freelancing platform called Fiverr, and it was only $5. I mean, and so that $5 turned into like 100, then 1,000, and up from there. And I think that moment, right? Like, I remember my wife and I. Just some backstory. My wife and I, we were struggling at the time financially, right? And I remember that first $5, my cut was $4. I took my wife out for breakfast, and it's amazing. And it's amazing that. So I just want to explain like how bad it was. Like that $4, we shared a breakfast for $3. I couldn't even get one like for both of us. Like, it was really a struggle at the time. And I thought, wow, okay, let's celebrate. And that moment, it was so humbling and so awesome, to look back at that moment. And I would say that's a complete highlight in my life. And I mean, obviously now, there's a lot bigger clients, and all different incomes and all of this type of stuff. But that $4 was such a highlight because that was the first one, and it was such a blessing to experience that with my wife as well.
Sure. So without giving too much away, it's sort of those sites such as Fiverr and Upwork and those sorts of resources. Are they a good place to start?
So, and whenever anyone asks me about like freelancing platforms, my disclaimer answer is to say, like, I believe that they are an option, but not the recommended option. So I would recommend that people do get on it and do certain strategies, and to try and make your profile stand out. That's point one. But point two, I would say more importantly, that the best way, I believe, is to create a portfolio website, to create to market your services accordingly on there, and then to advertise that portfolio site and get clients that way. So that is my preference between the two.
Yes, no, that makes sense as well. Good. Okay. And Kyle, your thoughts on the future of the industry? What do you see? What excites you about the IT industry and careers in this sector?
Well, it's actually quite interesting, Phil. I mean, if you think about it, right, it's fascinating times that we are living in. I mean, if you look at like teenagers, right, we are living in the time now, the first time in history that you will find teenagers who are self-made, like millionaires, because of business ideas that they have created, right? Maybe they are on YouTube, or they've created like a software app, and all of that. So I find that really fascinating if you think about it. Like, so with that said, I would say that what excites me is the ability to make a difference, and the ability to also solve problems, right? I mean, we've got knowledge at our fingertips. 100 years ago, people people couldn't say the same. I mean, if they wanted to research something, they had to read it. Now we've got everything at our disposal, at our fingertips, on our phone, and we can learn everything. And not only that, but we can also reach and speak to others, around the world, and really influence them. So whether that's social media, or a product, or a service that we create, I think that we can really make a difference. And in saying that, it also solves a problem and gives us a nice, interesting challenge. So I would say from that perspective, I'm really quite excited, because I don't think that's going away anytime soon. In fact, I think it's only going to improve and get more advanced.
Yes, I think you're right. I think as well, the pandemic over the last, well, how many ever months it is now, has certainly sort of provided the opportunity for the increased use of technology for those reasons. So I think that will continue.
Agreed.
Yeah. We're going to go into the reveal round now. We're going to find out a little bit more about you and the way you think. You ready for this?
Oh, wow. Okay, here's the pressure. Let's do it.
So, what first attracted you to a career in IT?
um, I've always been quite interested in marketing and websites and the psychology and solving problems. So I would say that, and that's been a big driver. And I happen to find that certain marketing and development fitted that, or solved that curiosity in my mind. So I would say that was a big driver to that.
And what's the best career advice you've ever received?
Hmm. Okay, so definitely a lot, but if I had to narrow it down, I would say um, go the extra mile and over deliver.
Yes, no, that's good advice, definitely. And what is the worst career advice you've ever received?
I don't know if it's exactly career advice, but I've had plenty of people tell me that freelancing is dead, and that is the worst. That is the worst comment or advice, or anything I've ever heard.
If you were to begin your career again in today's world, what would you do?
Okay, assuming that I had no knowledge, or everything from scratch, I would break it down. So I would learn. I would want to be doing exactly what I'm doing now. Okay, So I would want to learn marketing. I would want to learn web design, perhaps maybe even like Webflow, like a CMS like that. And then I would also learn other skills like such as freelancing and the psychology and strategy of it, things like sales, niching down. I would then create like an agency website based on the niching down. I would get testimonials and eventually I would get clients. And I would probably say the main core thing I would do here is I would adapt. I would learn on the job and I would adapt accordingly.
Yes. And what career objectives are you currently focusing on?
I would say my main driving force, and it's been this since I wanted to start freelancing. It's to help people and to make money while doing so. So my main goal and objective is to teach people to fish and to create more content, to get more clients, to sell more digital products. But sort of the underlying why behind it is literally to equip and help others, and it's a blessing to also be generating an income from that as well.
Yeah, indeed. So I presume that balance is very important to you in the way you view what you do.
Correct, definitely, without a doubt. I mean, at the end of the day, I look at it from this perspective. I think that it's quite easy to generate income, right? To make money. There are plenty of opportunities online, but if I want something fulfilling. I want to really teach people to fish. I want to say, like, look, this is the skills and this is how you do it, so that you can provide for your family, so that you can sow back and help others who are struggling as well. So I sort of see it as like a compound effect.
Yes, absolutely. And what's the number one non-technical skill that has helped you in your career so far?
I would say besides for being, curious and asking a lot of questions, I generally ask a lot more questions than what I speak. But I would say what has really helped me and what I do recommend is I would say owning up to mistakes. If you do make mistakes, do apologize for it. Don't try and pass the blame or say it was some other reason. And if you really want to learn, that desire for knowledge and wanting to improve, I think that's a good skill set. And obviously also communication, making sure that you don't assume too much and expect too much from others, and that you're clear and concise.
What do you do to keep your own career energized?
um I would say this sort of comes and goes, right? Like sort of that underlying passion. I mean, I speak to also a lot of friends who sort of go through ups and downs in what they do, but for me, it sort of boils down to trying to be consistent in discipline. So there were times that I did take like 2 months off completely, like a few years ago, and just sort of chilled and sort of did nothing really. But that sort of like ate at me. Like I really thought to myself, like, man, like I really want to get going here. And I realized that the more time I put in, the more people I can help. And once I've sort of came to that simple understanding, I was like, look, I'm not gonna retire now. I really want to put in some time, put in some effort, and really find a middle ground between the two. So because I realized that motivation is like an emotion, right? It goes up and down, up and down, up and down. But really, discipline really leads to the consistency side of it, and that's sort of what I've really been focusing on to really power me and energize me to really focus on the end goal, and that is helping more people.
Yeah. Do you find routine helps as well? So it becomes almost second nature, I suppose.
Yes, my short answer is yes to that, but also it's quite interesting. I'm not really. I agree that routine is important, but personally, I also don't like routine. So I'm also quite spontaneous in sort of the things that that I do. Maybe at like 10 o'clock or at like 12 o'clock or whatever. I would just want to just chill for an hour or two, play some chess, or go for a drive, or go for a coffee with my wife, or just do something random. But I do think that some structure and some routine to one's days and their tasks and activities definitely is helpful.
And what do you do in your spare time away from technology?
So I like doing I like playing tennis, and I like playing a squash. I do also spend like a lot of time with my wife. She's my best friend, so obviously I would want to spend more time with her. And I do also enjoy playing chess as well. So I would say it's sort of like a combination of that, and sort of a balance of also trying to learn more. Whether that's like I was going to say YouTube, but that's actually technology. But but maybe like a book or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Kyle, can you share a parting piece of career advice?
I would say if I can go back to on what I mentioned a bit earlier, what really helped for me is I used to really become close with all of the business owners that employed me. And the reason is because I was really interested in their business. I wanted to learn. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to be an asset to them. And I think that mindset and that approach has really benefited me in various different ways. Not only in how I grew in being an employee, but also being an employer in my own businesses at the moment. It's really helped me understand how to approach certain tasks. So I would say that if you can have the mindset of over delivering, just because 10 of your other colleagues don't do X, it doesn't mean that you should also not do X. Sometimes that is required in order for you to stand out, to make a difference, to serve your company, to serve your employer even more. And that mindset and approach is really beneficial, I believe, in the long run.
Yeah, that's very true. So, Kyle, can you tell us how we can find out more about you and connect with you?
Sure. So I think the main place or the main home, I would say, is my website. It's studywebdevelopment.com. All of my links are there. I've got my contact email there if anyone would like to reach out. My social links and everything is there. So that's pretty much the best place, I would say.
Great. Kyle, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's been great chatting with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Phil. I really, really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be here. And thank you once again.
Hi, Phil here again. Just a final few words from me. Firstly, I'd like to thank my guests for sharing their career tips, experiences and insights with us on the show today. As you probably know, there have been more than 200 guests on the show so far, and I'm continuing to try to attract new guests that can provide great insights to all of us. However, to enable me to do this, I need to ensure that the podcast continues to grow and reach an extended audience. And you can help me in doing this by subscribing to the show and providing a rating and review in whichever platform you listen to. Thanks again for your support, and until next time, have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the IT Career Energizer podcast. To find out more about building a successful career in IT, visit itcareerenergizer.com.